Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 9th meeting of the Economic Development Commission. Commissioners, with your indulgence, our chair and vice chair both just completed their three-year term on the Economic Development Commission, and neither sought reappointment. So until we get to the election of officers on our agenda, we do not have a chair and a vice chair, so I will chair the meeting until that time. Couple of items before we get into the agenda. Congratulations to Dan and Sandy, who have moved from alternate to regular, and welcome to Amit and Will, who are our two new alternate commissioners. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there any changes requested of the agenda? Hearing none, if we can have a motion.
I motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner John, second by Commissioner Kleppe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes from the May 14th meeting. Any changes to the minutes as in your packet? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Cherner and a second by Commissioner Andreski. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The third item on the agenda is our open business forum. This is a time in which any business can approach the Economic Development Commission and voice any questions, concerns, ask any questions, ask to have anything put on future agendas. It's very similar to the citizens' comments at a council meeting. Seeing no one in the audience, I will assume that we have no one that wishes to address the commission tonight. I will tell you, commissioners, this year's work plan, we did say that we would try and publicize the fact that we have the open business forum. We have been issuing press releases prior to your meetings. For this meeting, we actually tried something different. We actually sent out a notice on our Gov delivery system, which goes to anybody who requests to be kept abreast of meetings. And then we also did postings on the city's Facebook page, and we sent out a Twitter note on the city's Twitter account. So we thought we'd try something different to see if we could spur some interest. And then we also, as we have in the past, sent information over to the Burnsville Chamber and requested that they make that information available to their members, that it was available. We are now at item number 4, which is the election of officers. The Economic Development Commission's policies call for the election of a chair and a vice chair each year. The positions are held for 1 year, and each elected person can be re-elected and can serve up to 3 terms. As previously stated, our past chair and vice chair are no longer members of the commission, so we need 2 folks for both of those offices. And I would open up the floor to nominations for a chair. And you can self-nominate if you'd like.
I'll nominate Commissioner Andruski.
I'll nominate Craig for vice chair, because we're the 2 seniors, I think. Right?
No, I suppose.
Do we have a second to either of those nominations?
I'll second those.
Second by Commissioner Kleppe. The nomination for chair is for Commissioner Andreski. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Congratulations, Mr. Chair. And the nomination for vice chair is for Commissioner Reavers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Congratulations, Mr. Vice Chair. And I will now turn the meeting over to you, Chair Andreski.
All right, well, thank you. And as I noted earlier, this will be my last year on the commission, so I appreciate the opportunity. We've elected the officers. Now we're going to turn to the Dakota Electric Association Economic Development Strategies. Do we have a speaker? Or?
Mr. Loftus will be speaking.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. I'm happy to be here. My name is Mark Loftus. I'm the Economic Development Director at Dakota Electric. I've been employed there for about a year and a half. And this summer, I've been making an effort to visit the cities in our Dakota Electric service territory to talk about how we work on economic development, to engage the cities, with the commissions and economic development authorities to help understand how we work and see if there's some ways that we can work together. I do have a long relationship with Mr. Nienhaus. I was in state government at the State Economic Development Department for 24 years before I took the position in November of 2012 at Dakota Electric. So I knew Mr. Nienhaus when in his position here in Burnsville. So I have a large network and connection with economic developers across the state, actually, which is very helpful in my position. But today I'm going to talk about how we work on economic development, what that means to us at Dakota Electric. I'll give you some examples of projects that we work on and the ways that we go about our business. But first of all, I just want to show you our headquarters building down there in Farmington. And may I ask, how many of you are residential members of Dakota Electric? Oh, good. Well, thank you for being a member and a customer. You are, as members, you are owners of the cooperative. It's a member-owned cooperative. It was established in 1937 as part of the Rural Electrification Administration, one of those Depression-era programs to help electrify rural America. So our co-op 2 years ago, I believe, had the 75th anniversary. So I joined just at the end of that year. And I might show you then where our territory is. And this is a map that often puzzles people. If you look at the dark blue area, that's the area that Dakota Electric serves. And whenever I put this map up, I get several questions. Who drew the boundaries? Why is it such a strange collection of areas? Can we move the boundaries? The answer to those questions are it's a complicated history, and no, you can't move the boundaries. But it comes about because back in the day, in the 20s and 30s, when companies like Northern States Power or its predecessor companies who were the investor-owned utilities were deciding where they should put electrical service as they're electrifying America, they, of course, as you would with a profit-making company, pick the areas where there were actually people, population, and transportation, and a belief in future development likely to happen. So the areas that are the lighter blue here are the areas that are served now by Excel Energy. So if you look at the area that's Highway 13, of course, there, just under the Dakota County label at the top. We don't have the area north of Highway 13 and along the parts of Highway 13. We have much of the rest of Burnsville. We have most of Apple Valley and Lakeville and some of Farmington, some of the new parts of Farmington. But you look at across the area and the communities that were in place back in the 20s and 30s, like Hastings or Farmington, Coates even. Those are places that were rural communities back in that day. So there were actually population and places to serve. So Excel's predecessor company served those, and the rest of the areas were left for the federal government basically to provide grants and loans to help electrify rural America, the unpopulated areas at that time. So if that explains, hopefully that explains a little bit about how the history came about. And the boundaries then were kind of set by custom, and then in the 1970s and 80s, more solidly fixed, so that today, in theory, boundaries could be swapped. We could change boundaries with Excel, or change territories. But the reality is that we wouldn't give up territory that we served, that had kilowatt hours and energy delivered to it, unless we got an equal trade or better from Excel, and they wouldn't do the same with us either. So these boundaries are pretty much are what they are. So in terms of Dakota Electric as a business, as a nonprofit member-owned cooperative, you see we have about 200 employees, it's actually 103,000 customers, and an extensive infrastructure across Dakota County. The business of Dakota Electric also has substantial investment, and I've seen numbers that all of our power lines and underground service and substations, that is private investment or by our co-op is valued at about $99 million for tax purposes. So we actually do pay property taxes, believe it or not, personal property taxes. It's one of the few personal property taxes that exist in the state. The utilities, all utilities pay that, so a portion of that comes to the city of Burnsville as well. Here's our board of directors. These are all individual volunteers who are elected by the membership. We have 4 districts, and there are 3 people from each of the 4 districts. None of them, interestingly, from Burnsville. Several in District 1, which is what most of Burnsville is. Those 3 people all happen to live in Lakeville. Just it happens to be that way. So it's up for election by all other members, though. So if you're ever inclined in the future, please look at that when the notices come out. And you'll see a lot of these people at community events. They tend to be fairly visible. They have a monthly meeting down in our offices, and it's usually a day-long meeting. So they put a lot of work in, and 2 of the members are also on the Clay Vandebogart and Margaret Schreiner serve on the Great River Energy Board. Great River Energy is also a co-op. It's the generation and transmission part of our business. We're the distribution part. Great River Energy is a member-owned co-op based in Maple Grove, where they have the wind turbine up in downtown Maple Grove, if you've been up there. That's their headquarters, and they are also a co-op, but we have people who represent us on them. So who are the customers of Dakota Electric? I've got two pie charts for you here. The first one shows the percentages by type of customer. And as you can see, more than 93% are residential, about 6% are commercial accounts, and then that other 0.6%, that little sliver, are actually irrigation customers, golf courses, farm irrigation operations. As you recall from the map, we have a large farm part of the county that we serve. So think about this pie chart in the ratio of commercial to residential, and then look at this chart, which is that half of our energy sales go to residential customers, 93% by number, but 50% by energy use. On the other hand, large commercial, just go back, 0.4%, 0.4%, are large commercial accounts. They use 30% of the energy. So that would be companies here in Burnsville like United Technologies Corporation, one of our bigger customers, Valley Natural Foods, over there in County Road 11. Those are among those commercial accounts. And because of the significance of those commercial accounts, we have people who are designated as key account representatives, who are managers who work directly with those companies, make sure they access all of the rebates and programs that we can apply to them to help them be a successful business. But we also, of course, have a significant number of people who work down in Farmington who do nothing all day but spend time on the phone talking to customers and talking about billing and helping with service problems and installations. So it's an interesting mix of customers relative to the sales that we have. We also have a lot of programs to help save energy. You know, when I started at Dakota Electric, I asked one of the managers there, well, tell me, I was the new employee, tell me about all the programs to help save energy. They said, well, okay, I'll show you. Here's the book. It's about this thick, literally, and that's a combination of all the programs for everything from water heaters to heating and ventilation systems. It's a complicated set of programs, and that's what our staff help companies figure out. But the basic message here is that if someone invests in equipment or technology to help save energy, somebody will give you a rebate somewhere for that. Excel Energy will do it if you're an Excel customer. CenterPoint will do it if it's a natural gas use purpose appliance or equipment. We'll do it for our electric uses as well. So I've learned not to become focused on these programs as such, and just make that observation that work with us if you make those investments, and we'll help figure out if there's a rebate for it. So what do we work on with economic development? Well, and I should say one thing that Mr. Nienhaus has pointed out to me a couple of times. We're an interesting business model that we are a business that on the one hand helps people use less of our product, less of our service. We have this mandate to save energy, and it's a state mandate that all utilities have to follow, to use less energy every year. And that's based on the 3-year rolling average that moves based on our energy sales. That doesn't mean that we can't help grow the energy load overall, help attract more customers, more energy efficient load to our network. If those goals sound contradictory, I would understand that, but there's a way to calculate how we save energy from this amount, and how we can also grow the load overall. And I'll give you some examples of that a little bit later on. So what is my role here? With my experience in economic development, working with communities on a variety of expansion projects, one-time things. I'll give you some examples of longer-term strategies. I have spent some time marketing the county. During the past 7 months, I've been out of state at 5 different locations. I was in Omaha last week at an event marketing Dakota County for the future development of data centers. And I'll show you an example of that in just a second. But also, economic development involves significant amounts of information and making sure that we have high-quality data and statistics available for people who make site selection decisions. In the old days of economic development, that might even be 15, 20 years ago, companies that would do site selection would put a dot in the map and say, within this 200-mile radius, we want to look for a site. And they would send a request for information out to all those cities, and they would get it back, and they would get these big binders of information, and then they would, somehow from that would winnow it down to a few sites, and then maybe go visit them. Today, that whole process has changed. Now, if someone is a business is looking for a new site, they'll either have their consultant do the work, or they'll have someone on their staff sit at their desktop and literally in a matter of less than a few days, identify specific sites that meet all their needs. And that can be the level of workforce, the skill levels, how close they are to their customers, what the supply chain looks like that they need to have to serve them, what's the level of infrastructure, the electric and the gas and other infrastructure available in their area, proximity to community services. All that stuff is out there electronically, and it has to be good information, otherwise you'll get passed over in that. So we have a website that I have responsibility for, that I'm working on to enhance, but making sure all the tools and information that's out there is good, because companies will make a decision to locate, select 3 communities as finalists, and those cities might not ever know how they got picked if they didn't have good information. Also, as a matter of course, as a staff person, I'm involved in several county-wide initiatives. I'm on the Dakota Scott Workforce Board and on the board of the Dakota Regional Chamber, and also work with Skip on the Dakota CDA group of economic developers, just to stay engaged within activities in the county as I can on things that matter to us. And also staying in touch with the most recent initiatives that are out there, and understanding the latest information about how economic development is getting done. This year we were fortunate to have a couple of national development groups meet here in the Twin Cities, and those are the kind of places where you kind of build a network, and people like Skip and I who've been around a long time use that to help grow our contacts. And so it's very important that we do that. So I'm going to give you 3 examples, and the first one, these are projects that I've worked on. The first one is a company by the name of Price Industries. And the fellow in the middle there, who's at the podium with the governor and the development commissioner, his name is Bruce Dory. He's with Price Industries. It's a company out of Winnipeg. As it happened, I knew Bruce at his former company, which was the Daikin McQuay heating ventilation company up in Plymouth. And he and several colleagues left that business, went to work for a competitor company in Canada, and contacted me because they were looking for a site in the United States, and in our case, hopefully in Minnesota, to locate an engineering facility for 30 to 40 jobs. Engineering jobs that pay 80 to 90,000 and up. So they're very good jobs. The other part of their future effort, potentially, is a manufacturing site that would follow the engineering. And as we first talked to them, and Skip and I did talk about sites here that might have worked for them in Burnsville and other parts of Dakota County too, it became clear that they wanted to focus on the Northwest Metro. A couple of the people that they were bringing on board lived in those northwestern suburbs. So I understood that and quickly turned the direction from just how do we get you to Dakota County to how do we help you succeed in Minnesota. So I helped them with their discussions and contacts and negotiations with the city of Maple Grove and with the state of Minnesota also, recognizing that economic development is a long-term play. The engineering site that they develop, and in fact it's up and running now in Maple Grove, just off of 494 Bass Lake Road. The next phase will be manufacturing, if they're successful with that site. So they're coming back. Bruce and his colleagues will be back in Dakota County in a couple of months, less than a couple of months. I'll kind of connect with them and show them some other sites, and hopefully we can get them to phase 2. But it's an example of, I think this is a win for Minnesota that we could help with. For me, the win ultimately is the later project that we can get, which is maybe 200 to 300 jobs. So, second one is an example of a project in Hastings. Hastings Industrial Park had a building. It was a former lumber yard, I believe, lumber distribution site. And this company identified this property in Hastings. It's called a boost box, but it's a company's named Hex Fuel. It helps enhance the efficiency of a diesel truck, diesel fuel. It's a hydrogen fuel device of some sort. And don't ask me to explain the technology behind it, but they found that site and then asked us for help to figure out how they could connect it with state government resources. They actually did help me. Once they found their site, they asked if I could find other sites in Dakota County. None of the ones that I found for them were quite as good as the one they'd already found themselves. But again, this is a long-term possibility of growth. As it happens, interestingly, this business will not locate in Dakota Electric territory. A lot of Hastings is the old NSP Excel territory. But the fact is, if they employ 200 or 300 people ultimately in the manufacturing and installation of these devices on diesel trucks, they will almost certainly employ a significant number of our customers, of our members who will be employees at that site. So that's helped. This project has helped me as a Dakota Electric customer employee understand that we serve our customers in a lot of ways. And even though we're not selling this company kilowatt hours, they'll be employing people that could be our customers, very likely are in other parts of the county. So it is also a win for Dakota County. And finally, this is the most recent premier example. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Tasty Bakery building there in Eagan on Lexington Avenue, the former bakery, warehouse, and outlet store. Well, that's been empty for a couple of years, and recently, on June 23rd, this company, Data Bank, announced that they are going to renovate that building. This is an artist rendering of that new building. Going to build a data center in an 88,000-foot building. It'll be a co-location facility, and in that respect, it serves a couple of goals that the city of Eagan had. One, which is to improve the broadband service to the community. So they had the Access Eagan program that started about literally 10 years ago in conceptual stage. And the city put about $2 million into this fiber backbone, and this company, Data Bank, out of Dallas, is able to use that to serve as a facility that will house the computer servers of other companies. At the same time, this building will also be what is described as a carrier hotel in telecommunications jargon. It will be an alternative to a building in Minneapolis, downtown Minneapolis, near the Metrodome Viking Stadium site called the 511 building. And apparently the 511 building is the hub in the Twin Cities where virtually all the telecommunications flows through the 511 building. And as the people in Eagan look at it, and people in telecom industry, that's a potential. It's described as a single point of failure for the network, for the system. It could be very bad for all of us if that facility were brought down in some way. So this facility will be a backup, another source of internet traffic in and out of the Twin Cities. So it has there's a lot going for it. And the other reasons that they located here, 2 substations that we've got, kind of about a mile east and west of the facility, will bring 2 electrical feeds into the property. This whole data center sector is one that we know is growing. About 85% of the companies in the United States, of all types, maintain their own computer servers. Might be in a closet, might be in a little room down the hall. That's the kind of market that these companies, these co-location companies, are going after, because trying to keep up to speed on how the most efficient ways are to manage your data and run these servers, it's a sophisticated business, and these companies have got it down. I visited their facility in Dallas. It looks very much like this. Very secure facility. You need fingerprints to get into it. You have several levels of security once you get even inside the property. But it is a coming trend. In fact, this afternoon I just left I was over in Chaska at the open house, or the grand opening for Stream Data Centers, another competitor to DataBank, and witnessed the potential growth there. We now have about 5 co-location facilities in the Twin Cities with the presence of DataBank, and we're certainly hoping to attract more. It's good, energy efficient load that helps spread the costs of this network that we've invested in across more customers, and that's good in helping keep the pressure on rates down and spread our costs out among all the businesses. So that's my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Any questions that I can answer, or comments, or anything else that you'd like to know about Dakota Electric, and I can try to help with today?
Any commissioners have any comments or questions? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Skip, do we have any updates?
Mr. Chair, if I could, on the STEM Alliance activity report, if I could just draw the Commissioner's attention to 2 items. As you all know, back in May, we held the bus tour for the BECREC group. Thank you to our Commissioners who attended. We actually had about 43 brokers who got on that bus tour. We received a number of very positive comments regarding the bus tour. Not only about the buildings that they saw, but quite frankly, the opportunity to actually network as they sat on the bus. These are obviously brokers that are spread across the Twin Cities area and don't always have that opportunity to get together. The other item kind of falls under that. I can't believe we never did this before. But we just started something new. As you probably all recall, we send out letters under the mayor and the city manager's signature to businesses whenever they have a significant achievement. Many times we send them to businesses who make the top 25 of various lists in the Business Journal. Last month we started a process, and again, unbelievable that we've never thought to do this before. We are going to attempt to send letters to every new business that comes to Burnsville under the city manager and the mayor's signature, just welcoming them to Burnsville, thanking them for picking Burnsville as a place to do business, and then it has contact information that they can get the different folks if they have questions and concerns. Just another little way of thanking them. We as staff try and get out and meet all of those, but we don't always get to meet every one of the new businesses, so we're thinking this is another way to touch those. And if the Commission has any questions on the activity report, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Any comments by any of the commissioners? I think that's it for the agenda this evening.
You do need a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioners.